Can we invite the health team to speak to us today? They have to give us some knowledge. So, yes, Dr. Delali, let's together for him.
Morning, church. I trust that we are all doing well. Today we'll be talking about a very interesting topic, and that is going to be on stroke awareness. Right. Thank you. So we are about to begin the stroke awareness. By the way, my name is Delali Daiwo Labufla. I'll be taking you through a presentation on stroke awareness. All right, so let's begin. All right, before I begin, I want to take you through what I'll be talking about today. So the first thing we'll be looking at is a video giving you an introduction to what I'm about to present. Then next, knowing how to react, followed by the risk factors of stroke. Then I'll also comment on facts on stroke. That will include the definition and the types of stroke. Then finally, the take-home message. All right, so let's begin. Stroke is a very, very important thing to know, because one thing you have to know is that a lot of men have stroke more than women. But again, a lot of women die from stroke compared to men. And it will surprise you to know that more women tend to die from stroke than from breast cancer. A lot of women die from stroke than from breast cancer. So it's very important for us to know how to react. How to react. When I say how to react, it means that should you be walking in town, let's say on the street, and you find somebody showing certain signs and symptoms of stroke, what should you do? Because when we are talking about stroke, it all has to do with time. Every second matters. So it's very important to be ready to know about stroke and being able to recognize it and take the necessary action. So the stroke symptoms and signs are very, very important. And one interesting thing about these symptoms and signs is that they happen all of a sudden. Yeah, they happen all of a sudden. So when they happen all of a sudden, the best you can do is to take an action. And we'll be talking about those actions. So to help us react to stroke, there has been a very wonderful mnemonic that will help you to know. And that mnemonic is BEFAST. So BEFAST, react and don't regret. And what do you do next? You call the emergency service. And in Ghana, our emergency service number, that's the ambulance number, is 112. In America and the rest is 911. But in Ghana it's 112. So if you look on the flyer, you see 911 there, because that is the most popular ambulance service number that we all know. But in Ghana it's 112. So this BEFAST is just an acronym to help us recognize the symptoms and signs of stroke. That means that we don't even need to be a health professional to be able to recognize these symptoms and signs so as to take the necessary action to save a life. So BEFAST. So you can see it in that order. The first one is B. B meaning balance. Balance. Before I move on, I'll give you a story, a real life story that happened 2021. That was in January. I have a friend who called me that, oh, doc, I am not feeling well. Then I said, what is wrong with you? And he said he has realized that he has been having numbness on the left side of his body, starting all the way from the face, the arm, and the leg. Then I asked him, do you also feel any weakness? He said no. Then I told him that this could definitely be a stroke. So he is very far away from me, so I told him he should report to the hospital. So when he went to the hospital, they did a head CT scan, and it did not show anything. So he sent me a picture of that scan and said, doc, they said I don't have stroke. Then I said, no. The fact that you've done that does not mean that you don't have stroke. The stroke is now developing, so the CT scan may not pick it up. There are other conventional ways of diagnosing stroke which are more effective than the CT scan. So I advise him to go to come to Accra and go to, that time I advised him to go to Ridge Hospital. So when he went, they requested for a better scan, which is MRI, and it picked out the stroke. Funny enough, when they checked his BPs, his blood pressures, they were over the roof. He had BPs, that is 220 over 140 millimeters of mercury, which is very dangerous. We'll be talking about that now. So the first one is balance. When we say balance, it means you will see somebody who cannot walk straight. They will be walking as if they have taken alcohol. If you look at people who drink alcohol, when they are drunk, you watch their motion, they cannot walk straight. They are always wobbling around. They want to grab onto something. Yes, so when you see somebody having that may be stroke. It does not mean that it's stroke. That may be stroke. Yeah, that may be stroke. The same person will feel dizzy. They will feel dizzy, meaning they will feel as if the ground is turning around them. And that will make them not to walk straight. So that is the first one. That's the balance that we are talking about. The next one is going to be the E, which stands for eyes. For the eyes, they will have difficulty seeing. They will complain that they cannot see. If you give them something to read, they will not be able to read. And this can happen in our homes, our parents, our grandparents, our brothers, our sisters. It can happen to them. So if a sibling of yours, or your father, your mother, your grandparent, are complaining that they cannot read, or they're having difficulty seeing, that may be a sign or symptom of stroke. The next one is going to be the face. When it comes to the face, you realize that some people, one part of their face tends to droop. It's lower than the other side. And how will you try to find out? You can ask anyone who is experiencing that to smile. And when they smile, you realize that one side of the face is what? Higher than the other. And that may be a sign of stroke. And with the face too, you will see this same person complaining about headaches. And how will you know that they're having headaches? Most of the time you see them, rubbing their forehead. They'll be rubbing their forehead in that manner. They're always rubbing their forehead, meaning the head is what? Aching them. So headaches always does not mean that you should go to the pharmacy or the drugstore and get paracetamol. It's a wrong practice. Not every headache has a cause. There are some headaches that you don't have a cause for. But when you're having a headache, it doesn't mean that always go and take paracetamol and that is it. That is it. And as I'm telling you right now, headache may be a sign of what? Stroke. And next one is going to be the arm. Even though it's written arm, it has to do with the arm and the legs. So one interesting thing about stroke is that when you have a problem in your brain, because stroke emanates from the brain, if the problem is on the right, the symptoms and signs would happen on the left. If it's on the right, the symptoms and signs will happen on the left. That is for stroke. So if you see somebody having a problem with the left arm and the left leg or the left face, it tells you that that person is having a problem in the right side of the brain. I'll comment on that very soon. So they have this kind of weakness in the arms and legs, and with that, they are not able to perform simple tasks. If you ask them to write something, they can write it. If you ask them to hold a bottle or grab a bottle of water, they will not be able to do that. So that is for the arm and the legs. The next one is going to be speech. With speech, you will see these people not being able to communicate. They are not able to conjugate their words properly. When they speak, you barely hear it because the speech is slurred. And you don't tend to understand what they are saying. That may be a sign of stroke. Then finally, the time. As I said from the beginning, time is everything. Even aside stroke in life, time is everything. Every second matters in stroke. So the more you delay, the worse the prognosis. So time means that you should immediately call 112 in Ghana. That is the ambulance service. And even if you call and they come and they assess this patient, they take this patient to the hospital and they assess this patient and realize that it is not even stroke. At least it's better than you not making that call. And that could help. Who knows? It might not be stroke, but it might be something else. So this mnemonic tends to help you recognize stroke wherever you are. It may be at the workplace, it may be at home, it may be in the trotro, it may be on the street, anywhere you find yourself, in school, anywhere. All right, so that is about the BEFAST mnemonic. Now, we want to learn about who is most at risk for stroke. When it comes to stroke, there are two types of risk factors. When we say risk factors, we are looking at factors that will make it possible for somebody to develop stroke. There are two types. One that we can do something about, that is, we can manage. Then the other one, there's nothing we can do about it. So the first one we are going to be looking at is the manageable risk factors. That's the modifiable risk factors. And when it comes to stroke, the most important risk factor for stroke is high blood pressures. That's hypertension. If I should ask right now, in this church, how many of you check your blood pressure in the last 2 months? You realize that a lot of us will be found guilty. I want to take this opportunity to tell each and every one of us that we should regularly check our blood pressures, even if you don't have high blood pressure or hypertension. Because when you have high blood pressure, it does not show you any signs and symptoms. It only does so when it's about to have a damage on you. That is why we always say that hypertension is a silent killer disease. And hypertension, again, is the most important risk factor when it comes to stroke. And you only know when you are having stroke. So that is the number one risk factor when it comes to stroke. The next one is going to be smoking. Yes, those who smoke are at high risk of what? Having stroke. Next one is our diet. If you are taking diets rich in cholesterol, that is also going to be a problem in stroke. Those who have diabetes mellitus are also at risk. The interesting thing is that diabetes mellitus and stroke, diabetes mellitus and hypertension, they tend to be very good friends. So most of the time, if somebody have diabetes mellitus, there's a high chance that they would have hypertension. Even if they don't have, they will develop it very soon. And likewise for someone who has diabetes, somebody who has hypertension, there's a high chance that they can develop diabetes mellitus if they don't do the necessary thing. When I say diabetes, it has to do with what? High levels of sugar in your blood circulation. Then the next one is going to be obesity. If you are highly overweight, that is why with this, your physical activities come into place. Exercise would help with obesity. Not only exercise, but your diet. If you are able to take a rationate diet, it can help with regards to obesity. Then the next one is lack of physical activity, which has a relationship with obesity. Next is the heart arrhythmias. When your heart is not able to provide the right rhythms for it to contract, it can also lead to stroke. Then next is heart failure. We know that our heart is the only pump that we have in our body which supplies blood to every part of the body, including the heart itself. And the brain depends on the heart for survival. So if the heart fails, blood cannot get to the brain, and the brain cannot function. And that is when you develop the stroke. Then heart attack. Heart attack, that is when the heart is not getting enough blood, that is oxygen, to function. The cells within the heart will die, and the person who is having that, if care is not taken, that person will die. That's what we call heart attack. Then finally, even though it's not written there, is oral contraceptive pills. This one goes to our ladies. Those who are on oral contraceptive pills containing estrogen, a particular hormone we call estrogen, they are also at high risk of developing stroke. All right, next one. So the next one is the risk factors that we cannot do anything about. They are more likely things that we cannot manage. First one is age. One thing you should know about stroke is that stroke is a respecter of no one. It can happen in anybody, even children as young as 7 months, they can develop stroke. Those children are those that have a condition we call sickle cell anemia. That is why it's very important that before you marry, you should always check your sickle cell status, because love is not always enough. You always have to check your sickle cell status so that you don't give birth to a child having sickle cell anemia, because that child can develop stroke as early as 7 months, 1 year, 2 years. So stroke is not limited to only the older people. But one interesting thing about stroke is that as you grow, the risk of you developing stroke increases. So most of the time we see people who develop stroke, they are around the ages of 50 years, 60 years. And as the older you get, the higher your chances of getting stroke if you are not doing the right things. Next is gender. Gender cannot be alterated. Once you are male, regardless of the sophisticated technologies that are available now to change your sex and all that. The genetics does not change. You are still a male if you are male. And when it comes to gender, males have twice the chance of developing stroke compared to the females. But funny enough, the females tend to die from stroke more than the males. Next one is the race or ethnicity. Africans, black people, have the highest risk of stroke compared to the white people. Then finally, family history. If there's someone in your family, especially first degree, maybe your mother, your father, or your siblings develop stroke, then you should be on a red alert. It means that the chances of you also developing stroke is very high. All right, let's move on. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is facts on stroke. Stroke is similar to heart attack. Why do I say that? Because when we say stroke, it's an attack on the brain. How does it come about? It will come about when the brain is demanding for blood containing oxygen and is not getting it. So there's going to be an imbalance between supply and demand. I am demanding for blood, you are not giving it to me. So what happens to the cells in the brain? They will die. And when those cells die, it cannot be reversed. It's irreversible. So there are two things that happen in stroke, which would give credence into the fact that the brain is under attack, not receiving enough blood. One is that when the blood vessels bringing blood to the brain, we call them arteries. When they become blocked, they could become blocked by cholesterol. They could become blocked by blood clot. They could become blocked when the vessel itself would constrict. When the vessel itself narrows, so you don't have blood getting to the brain. That is one. The second one is when these same arteries supplying blood to the brain, when they rupture. When they rupture, it means the blood will be pouring out into places that they are not supposed to pour. So what will happen? The pressure in the brain will increase. There's going to be more damage being caused to the brain, and the brain will swell. And those cells that need the oxygen, once they are not getting it, they tend to die. And when we are talking about death of cells in stroke, they cannot be reversed. All right, let's move on. All right, so all that I've explained right now is with relation to the types of stroke. There are two types of stroke. We have what we call the ischemic stroke. For the ischemic one is what I said, that the blood vessels, that's the arteries, becomes blocked. They become occluded, so blood does not get to the brain. The second one is when the blood vessels get ruptured. Again, blood is getting out of the vessel and it's not reaching the brain. So those two are the types of stroke. Funny enough, the second one, which we call hemorrhagic, is more dangerous than the ischemic. Let me tell you a real-life story about the hemorrhagic. I was working at the emergency and a patient was rushed through the emergency. Then I asked about what happened prior to them bringing a patient to the emergency. And this is what a witness said. He said he saw the man falling down and he thought that probably he was drunk. Yes, so it says a lot that that particular witness does not know much about stroke, because if he were to know, he would have taken the decision earlier, because he waited for almost about 30 to 45 minutes before bringing this patient. And when they brought the patient, checked the blood pressures, very, very high, 250 over 170. That is blood pressures that you don't normally see. And the patient was unconscious. We requested for a head CT scan, and the whole brain was filled with blood. We did everything we could do. Second day, this patient died. So this hemorrhagic stroke is very dangerous compared to the ischemic. Ischemic it progresses slower, but the hemorrhagic, that one, when it happens and nothing gets done immediately, the patient tends to lose his or her life. Okay. So the take-home message is that we all have to be stroke smart. We need to know these signs and symptoms of stroke. We need to know the BEFAST. BEFAST. We need to understand that there should be, if there's a problem with balance, we need to call 112. If there's a problem with vision, that is the eyes, we need to call 112. If we are seeing things on the face, that is the face is asymmetric. There's no uniformity between the face. We need to call 112. If someone complains that he is having weakness, he or she is having weakness in the arms or legs, or this person cannot perform simple tasks, we need to call 112. If the speech becomes impaired in a way that when they speak, we don't understand what they are saying, we need to call 112. And always remember, time is the most important key to saving somebody who might be developing a stroke. So calling the emergency service, that's the ambulance service, that's 112, is always the right thing to do. Even if you call and it turns out that it's not stroke, at least that is better than you not calling. So spread the word, and the impact may be everlasting. Thank you very much for paying attention.